Go to the story now. Various stakeholders gathered in Marikana near Rustenburg in the northwest on Friday to launch a collaborative process to create a positive future in Marikana. Mining company Sibanye Stillwater kickstarted the initiative with a 4 billion rand project to 4,000 additional permanent jobs over the 50th year of its operations in its local mine. It is the first practical large-scale project since the massacre of 2012 that left dozens dead and bereaved families without breadwinners. Joining me now to discuss the significance of this initiative is Themba Nkosi, who's the Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Sibanye Stillwater. Mr. Nkosi, good evening, rather. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Just take us through what this, approach, apart from this 4,000 additional permanent jobs over the 50-year life of the mine's operation. Apart from that, what does this, multi-pronged intervention look like?
Good evening, Kathy, and good evening to your viewers. I think last year, if you may recall, we had a brief chat when we had the commemoration of Marikana, and we had the memorial lecture. And then we had launched our approach of renewal, which we had said is going to be a three-pronged approach, which was based on honoring, engaging, and creating. And we had focused our honor leg, which was at the beginning of the program last year, towards honoring the victims, towards honoring the pain of the widows. And in that context, we had actually erected that wall of remembrance for all 44 victims. That is very imperative because a lot has been written about 34 victims, but we understood the pain to be equal across all family members, and we have embraced all 44 victims. At the entrance of our property, we've erected the wall of remembrance. We've also then engaged with the widows and the families. We understood the emotional restoration that they had required, which was about creating houses for the widows, ensuring that the beneficiaries or the dependents of the deceased are taken care of. To that extent, we have the 1608 Memorial Trust, which basically looks after 141 beneficiaries in terms of the education. And the trust is endowed sufficiently to see each beneficiary till they finish tertiary studies of their choice. We then also understood the widows to be wanting to have houses. And at the time, we started the housing program. Unfortunately, 2020, COVID hit us and we couldn't continue the houses. But to date, we've built about 7 houses, purchased 1. We left with about 8 of the balance of the widows. You'd recall at the time, AMCO Trust had started building some houses, and we have sought to then conclude that housing restoration, which we believe will be done by end of June this year, in terms of the total 16 houses. And then we then said the second part of it would be about engaging. And engage is about engaging all stakeholders in Marikana to break the divide, to ensure that we all work through together, understanding that there may be disagreements, but we cannot let the pain of Marikana be owned by a single entity or by a single stakeholder. We're inviting all stakeholders to work together, and we've had resounding success from NGOs, from faith-based institutions and leaders, from community engagement forums, organized labor, and we're saying we need to ensure that we do not forget what led to Marikana, and we called for tolerance and ensure that we all do humanity better. And I think if we do humanity better, it's going to lead us to then the healing and hope and renewal, which we believe is going to be the creation part of our three-phased approach. And the creation part basically is around how do we recognize the fact that mining is a finite business and we're mining finite resources. And we need to ensure that we engage with stakeholders and create a legacy beyond the life of mine that's going to create sustainability. Yes, we've got the K4 and the 4 billion rands program, but we also know that the other shafts are going to soon near their end of life. And we're focusing on parallel economies in terms of working together with the municipality and the DMR to create a district development model that is not only focused on mining, but also starts today to build other industries in parallel, like agriculture and the value chains associated with those industries.
And how much of a buy-in then did you have from the community? Because you'd remember when that wall of remembrance went up, there were some in the community and some of those involved in the Marikana, story, who said that they were not consulted.
Well, our approach is a humble one, contrary to a lot of beliefs, and we will not impose. We do believe that we had engaged with all stakeholders, we had engaged with all the families at the time, and to an extent that we then later had the voice of dissent. We then challenged the people to tell us which families said they were not consulted, and we didn't get far in that conversation. So in our minds, we do what families want. The same with the housing program. We went and engaged with families, acknowledging that there was a housing program that was started. We do not know the modems of those housing program that was started, but we believe that our housing program needed to beneficiate the children and the spouses of the deceased employees, and that's exactly what we set out to do. So we do hope that at some point we all are going to get under this one common tent, which is the common tent of restoration and renewal, and ensuring that we do understand what happened in the past, but we ensure that as we go forward, the past is not repeated. And this talks to all stakeholders in the area, and also secondly, ensure that we do get the healing. I mean, in African culture, healing is very critical post a disease, a kind of a bereavement. And we believe that we need to acknowledge the pain of Marikana and not downplay it, but also hope and pray that all stakeholders are going to see the need to move forward and ensure that we get the healing and renewal such that the past is not repeated, and improve relationships across all stakeholders to ensure that we get the proper socio-economic impact in the areas where we operate.
And you can, of course, appreciate the fact that, while this project is, really one that you say is looking at healing and really restoring, the lives of the people in that particular mining town, it might be difficult, particularly when you look at how, there hasn't really been anyone that has been held to account when it comes to the law, and that wound continues to be opened then, and thus making projects like the ones that you're trying to do then difficult, because people feel like that's only one aspect, but the most important aspect of accountability is still lacking.
I can't agree with you more on that one, and hence we are very conscious around emotional settlement. And when we spoke to the stakeholders, particularly the widows and the families, there was an outcry for justice. And hence last year, our CEO, when we did the memorial lecture in Frontman, committed that Sibanye is going to commit resources to assist the families to get justice. You'll recall that we were also clear about seeking justice for the Bapo Nation in terms of the monies that disappeared in the D accounts, and ensuring that the businesses of Bapo that were taken for a ride with misappropriation and misgovernance, we're going to go after those people. And this simply talks to us, ensuring that the Bapo Bamokhale has got resources to do that, so that we then get the restoration in its fullest. We also are conscious of the fact that Marikana, particularly in Kaneng, is an area that lacks a lot of development, and hence part of our creation leg of the process will then talk to a Litsima process where we bring all stakeholders without imposing what is required in an area for development, but focus on ensuring that that area gets appropriate development in terms of infrastructure, in terms of alternative economies, in terms of agriculture, as well as making sure that the average moms and pops in the area that are unemployed have got sustenance, self-sustenance in the form of vegetable gardens. I think water scarcity in the area is a big thing. A lot of our SLPs already have focused on that. So in my mind, Kate, this is not a walk that we